Welcome to 1850 Main Street, a place where friends get together and talk about their country and hope for a brighter future. Your hosts have built this spot over the past 40 years, meeting every day with people who are in the headlines and behind the real stories. Today, Rob Walgate from the American Policy Roundtable and Alan C. Duncan, executive producer of the Public Square Media Network, are at the table by the fireplace.
So, does the potential of dock workers striking and causing major supply chain issues give anyone else COVID flashbacks, or is it just us?
Rob, I hate to do this to you, but I have a question. What do you remember about the supply chain issues during COVID?
I remember. So, and this isn't a paid advertisement, but this is the fact that I'm getting older in life. And we have
although if you want to sponsor,
and we have different joys. My favorite store to go in, hands down, no questions asked, is Costco.
Okay.
That's I'm not a fan of going in any store, but if I have to, and I do more so than I do online, it's Costco. That being said, what I remember about supply chain issues that I still feel like I need to buy as many things of toilet paper as they'll let me in Costco. And now when I go in.
And that's a lot. That's, to be fair, that's a lot of toilet paper.
Yeah, you don't need a 10-year supply. So that's what I remember. I remember the supply chain issues broke down. I remember that the crazy amount of, cars, what people were paying for cars, used cars. I remember that. There's so many things that you remember. It was a train wreck. I remember the building of stuff. We're sitting in.
The building we're sitting in now took what, a year longer than it?
We had you're trying to get this piece and that piece, and this isn't being done, and why isn't that being done? The projector. We have projector and screen in the great room here at the American Mission Center. Why didn't you just go find the train it was stuck on?
Yeah, right. It was some weird French polymer they needed to paint the screen with, and then we couldn't find a lens that fit on the projector. It was, so we had some of those. I also remember Jeff Sanders of the American Policy Roundtable and the Public Square. Jeff, and he's been heard on 1850 as well. He's a very prepared man, let's put it that way, bug out bags and things like that. I remember him texting me specifically and saying, stores are going to run out of stuff. Get yourself a bug out bag. So my wife and I were filling jugs of water and, jars of water and getting food stocked and stuff. Thankfully, it didn't come to that, at least where we were. Maybe for some people it did. But supply chain issues were a very real struggle for people.
Disrupted worldwide.
It made you realize how dependent we are on the supply chain, on truckers, on shipping, on all that kind of thing.
And I would say in the United States, we may not have experienced some of the things that some other countries did.
Certainly.
When you look north of the border, when you look at different parts of Europe with the shutdowns and things that happened, it was disrupted as a whole.
Well, so it might be COVID scars for myself, but that experience, having lived through that, made this article that we're going to talk about today jump off the headlines to me.
Yeah, you texted this to us right away, and you're like this,
yeah,
this grabbed your attention.
It did. Yeah, when I see this headline, dock workers cancel bargaining, threaten strike at U.S. seaports. Alarm bells start going off in my head. Continuing on with this piece. Yeah, I think this is originally a Wall Street Journal piece. It says dock workers at America's East Coast and Gulf Coast seaports canceled labor talks that were due to start this week and raised the possibility of a strike later this year at some of the country's biggest trade gateways. These negotiations are aimed at securing a contract covering more than 45,000 dock workers at ports from Maine to Texas ahead of the current agreement's expiration on September 30th. So they have some time. But September's coming upon us
quickly. Well, they have
quickly.
time, but if they say they're not going to talk, then they can have all the time you want if you're not willing to talk. When I think about the dock workers, the 45,000, I think about the ports that I've seen. Now, the ports I've seen primarily are on the East Coast and, Savannah, Charleston, Jacksonville. I'm always amazed. Anyone that's been to Jacksonville and you drive over this bridge, I always say I want to take my brother with me because he's scared of heights. And the bridge you have to go over, and you can see the port down below, and just the massive amount of ships and cargo. And you think, I think Jacksonville's like 13th or 14th in the United States, largest. So there's plenty out there that are bigger. And I'm like, my goodness, look how that shows how dependent we are on things that are coming.
And we don't think about it
from all over the world. You
don't think about it until your Dockworkers strike.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And we saw that with the cargo liner that hit the bridge in Baltimore. And that shut down the port there for a while, I believe. So that's when you're like, wait a minute here, what's going on? We have 45,000 people that may not be working come October. Obviously, that's right before the holiday season. It's right before the winter season.
It's also an election year.
It's also an election year, and that just happens to be the week before voting starts.
Yes.
In many states.
Well, so I would think this article mentions that they're trying to get the Biden administration to help to broker this deal. And we'll get into more of what they're striking about coming up here in a second. But I would think that the Biden administration would certainly not want this strike to happen, because I would think that if the economy was affected, it would reflect poorly on him and his administration. He wouldn't want that as people are walking into a voting booth.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Biden administration doesn't want to see a strike, and the Biden administration obviously is going to be, I would think, very friendly towards the union workers and take their side. I mean, the one thing is Joe Biden is running against an opponent in this election that would never take political shots or anything over a strike, and never go after. Yeah, I'm sure he would just ignore this and say, "Oh, there's nothing that Joe Biden can do about it," and just let it slide. No, if this comes to fruition over the next couple months, this will start grabbing major headlines. I do think, as far as this goes, and it's talked about later in the article, the terminal operator, APM Terminals, said the company is in full compliance with the union contract, and they're disappointed that the ILA has chosen to make selected details of ongoing negotiations public in an effort to create additional leverage for their other demands. I always find things interesting, like one, how that was written. That guy didn't say for their requests. He said their other demands. You always in writing, write it out. I was taught that in Major League Baseball umpiring school.
Okay.
How to write things when the coach comes at you, or the manager in baseball comes at you. The manager ran at me screaming. I stood and listened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything's active with him. He's hostile. I responded. So anyway, that's what I think of when I see that their demands, saying what their demands are. But
it is a very perfectly you thing. You were taught writing at an umpire school. That's perfectly fits with you. I love it. Well, the other day we were all having a conversation. Did you take journalism classes in school? And you're like, I think I skipped those classes, but you did take umpire school.
We had to learn how to write reports. Counts. I will say this. Video technology has taken away the need for a lot of these writing things, because you can write what you want, dare I say, as the Louisville Police Department found out. You could write what you want, but if the video doesn't match up with what happened, and I'm referencing Scotty Scheffler in the PGA Championship. So you can write what you want, but if that doesn't match what's on the video, it doesn't matter. So anyway, that's why they're saying for their other demands, they feel that the union made this public to garner public support, because people would have the same reaction you had.
Yeah. They would say,
COVID.
And
remember COVID. We don't want supply chain problems. Fix this and fix it now. And they're not happy that they went public with this.
Okay. So when we come back, let's talk more about what are the demands. And you mentioned technology. Technology comes into play about these demands.
When you subscribe to 1850 Main Street, you're the first to find out what's happening next with new guests, publications, and events. And when you spread the word about 1850 Main Street, you're helping others find real answers to the real questions facing America right now. To learn more, visit 1850mainstreet.com. And please, tell a friend.
All right, Rob, so let's talk about what the International Longshoremen's Association is concerned about. What are they threatening to strike over? What have they walked away from the labor talk table about?
Well, it says in the article, what has been a flashpoint for labor talks on both coasts is automation. And there's been automated machinery being used to lift, carry, and stack containers on docks around the world. Union leader Harold Daggett, in a speech last year, accused the Biden administration of standing by while foreign-owned carriers use machinery to eliminate good-paying American jobs. So that's where he's taking a shot at the Biden administration, because when when a ship comes to port, you're not going to have all American citizens or American workers on that ship. They're coming from other places, and we saw that.
Ships are coming from other places, going to other places.
We saw that in the Baltimore incident with the gentlemen that were, they were stuck on the ship for a while after it hit the thing because of visa. There's a lot of issues. So they're using different machinery that may be not okayed by this union contract.
Right, because it says the union canceled the talks after it found that a terminal operator owned by a Danish carrier was using autonomous equipment to process trucks at ports, including Alabama's Port of Mobile. So it's a Danish company as well. So, you've got this has international incident written all over it. It's tough to control what another country does with automation. And see, this is the thing that's tough for me. I'm usually anti-tech guy. I'm usually which is odd because I use a ton of technology for my daily job.
As I look around this recording studio at all the cameras and lights and monitors, and
I like to write with pencil on paper. That's my preferred method of doing anything.
And your dad yet prefers a fountain pen.
He does prefer a fountain pen, yes. And I'm holding a paper version of the article right now as we speak. So, no, but this one is tough for me. So I'm totally AI. I don't like AI pretty much at all. I don't like the thought of Neuralink from Elon Musk at all. We should do some shows about some of this stuff coming up.
But Neuralink, if I understand it correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and I know we're venturing off the path a little bit.
Yeah,
but
these are unscripted.
That can help folks that are colorblind.
Yeah.
Experience color.
Yeah, that function I would be 100% in support of. It can help people with other spinal injuries as well. But that's not the long-term goal. And this is something Elon has talked about on other. If that was where you would stop, that's great because that's restoring functions that human beings are supposed to have. Human beings should have the ability to see color and walk. That's a normal human function. It's when you start to venture into the superhuman, like maybe we could just download entire libraries into people's skulls. These are maybe we can just communicate telepathically through the Neuralink. These are things that they want to get to. And I think that's troubling in many ways. But again, I think we should probably do a whole 1850 conversation on that. But this one, the longshoremen, and again, I get it. Anything that's coming for anybody's jobs, a union has every right to stand up and say, we don't like this. But this automation these automated machines are used for, what did you say, Rob, in there? It's used to lift,
carry, and stack containers on docks.
Lift, carry, and stack. To me, that's what tools are supposed. Tools are designed to make things easier and more efficient for humans to do a task. I think it's going to be very hard for them to convince ports not to use machines that can lift, carry. And they are using
machines to a certain extent, but there's other things.
So this is more just the next level of that, I suppose.
Well, yeah, and I think this probably deals with you normally have people that are operating those machines.
Right, and these are the automated versions of that.
So do you need or can you type it in, send this lift over to the other side of the dock and have it unload this ship, and you don't have to worry about it because AI has it covered and the tech has it covered. And
I think what this association would probably have to prove, or at least demonstrate on some level, is that they're better at doing it than the machine. Because again, I would find it very difficult to believe that a company, if you could just have a machine lift and stack something, would probably just have a machine lift and stack something.
Well, I think this goes to the thing, well, then why not just have the machine drive the ship across the ocean? I mean, that it doesn't stop. That's the issue at hand, right? The semi that's driving the goods to somewhere else, are they going to have anyone driving that?
We're probably going to have a conversation about that in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. And where does that go as it pertains from an insurance perspective? Because what's easier to replace or what's easier to fix, a human or a machine? There's a lot of questions that are going to need to be answered, and a lot of things are discussed.
It's a very big conversation.
It's a large conversation. It's not something you can just dismiss, or I don't think it's something you can flippantly say one way or the other, because there are a lot of ands and what ifs.
Yeah, because I don't think any one of us is against technology in principle if it's a tool to help human beings make their lives and the lives around them better. But the question becomes, to your point, if it goes, at what point does it cease to be something that's helping you and it's actually harming you?
Well, and I think we need to appreciate the technology that we do have today that maybe has been around for a while. You know, we were talking the other day of, look at things we have that if they were invented today, we'd be like, wow, that is amazing. The first thing I think of is a combustible engine. I mean, if someone said they came up with an engine that can run 40 miles, to a gallon of gas and do all that, like if that would be like, no, that's amazing. Yeah. Like that. It's stuff that we take for granted that we have in the advances in technology that maybe at one time were looked at like, oh, do we really want to do that?
Oh, they were 100. Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I'm going here, but we grab a book off the shelf. I try to often. So I did grab a Chesterton book. He's one of the 7 authors that our library here is dedicated to. And he was not a big fan of the car. You bring it up. He has writings where he talks about some of the negative impacts of cars. And so I'll let him, people can look that up and he can make his case for that. But the car did radically change our lives. You're now expected to be somewhere at a certain time. Sometimes I wish someone was expecting me to get there on a horse or a covered wagon. I'm like, if I was coming by horse, you wouldn't expect me to be there in 15 minutes. Maybe that's just the way someone who's late perpetually thinks.
You're late.
And that's coming from someone who's early perpetually. So I miss horseback travel. Okay. You wouldn't have expected me to be there on time. My horse had to have a drink. So anyway, I do think that just in general, broadly speaking of technology, Chesterton has some really interesting insights in his book, The Outline of Sanity. He's got a chapter in that book called The Wheel of Fate. And he's kind of going against, and it's so funny that this was written probably 100 years ago, just thereabouts. He's talking about people that think modern technology has come to stay. He's like, well, the technology's come to stay like it's doing it, and his point is, you're doing it. Like we are building the stuff and then assuming it's inevitable. And so he's just encouraging people to have a mindset shift. Like technology is not coming to stay. That's almost like an evolutionary mindset. Like, well, it's just happening to us.
Yeah. And I don't think if we could get in a DeLorean and go back, I would like to have Chesterton opine on AI.
Oh gosh. Well, that's why I'm bringing up these pieces, because these are such timeless principles. You can just import them directly into the modern age. Like he's saying, if you made the thing, you can unmake it. You can stop making that.
Oh, but we become addicted to the things that we bring in. We just did a show on gambling. The toothpaste is out of the tube. It's all over the bathroom. It's on the mirror. It's everywhere. It's not going back in. And if it is going back in, it's going to take a major reconstruction. Yeah. That's what it would take.
It could go back in.
It could go back in.
But it would take an act of human commitment and will to do it.
Yes.
And probably a little bit of a miracle. Well, again,
is there an instance in American society where it has gone back in? Is there something that we've embraced or we've brought that where we've said, hey?
I mean, you could point to slavery. There were whole industries built around using forced human labor, and we were able to stop that. But it took a lot of human will. It took a lot of human death. It took a civil war to put that toothpaste back in the tube, so to speak.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody wants something like that again. No. But just a quick quote here from this book. This says, the aim of human polity is human happiness. We think about that, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And not happiness just to do whatever you want, but really real human flourishing. And so Chesterton goes on to say, there's no obligation on us to be richer or busier or more efficient or more productive or more progressive if it does not make us happier. So I think we have to look at, is the technology that we have making us happier, or is it making our lives worse? So again, we know this is a broader conversation, and we love talking about technology on 1850. And so we'll keep talking about this, but we're also going to keep looking at this situation with the longshoremen and their union. And we really hope that something can get resolved. Nobody wants to see supply chain issues, and nobody wants to see American jobs lost or anybody's jobs lost. So we'll keep monitoring this, keep watching it. And then if anything else happens, we'll fill you in.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.